Welcome to Relocating to Disney. You just bought your Florida house and you've just moved in. Now is probably a good time to make sure you don't burn it down. So let's go over some easy steps that you need to follow to make sure your house and your family stay safe. One of the first things you're going to want to do is clean that dryer vent. I've got a video that I'll link that shows you how to do that. Very easy. Next up is fire extinguishers. Now, if you moved and you had fire extinguishers in the back of your moving truck, congratulations, you've probably violated laws or moving truck rules because you're not supposed to move these inside of moving trucks. If you followed the rules, you have arrived at your new house with no fire extinguishers, and you need to get some. Fire extinguishers can be expensive, so get as many as you can afford and put them around the house. Now remember the purpose of a fire extinguisher. You're not a fireman. You're not here to fight a fire. The purpose of a fire extinguisher is to get you out of the house safely. So where's some places you might want to put a fire extinguisher? How about in every bedroom? And then train your family on how to use them. So if the fire alarms are going off, go back to your basic fire safety courses. You go up to the bedroom door, you touch it. If it's warm, there's a fire on the other side. Don't open the door. But if it's not warm, grab your fire extinguisher and head on out. Then you can use the fire extinguisher if you need to make a path to get you out of the house. They have smaller fire extinguishers that you can consider buying for the kitchen that can help with stove fires. So that might be something to have under your kitchen sink. The next thing we're going to talk about is fire alarms. And it's so easy to take these fire alarms for granted that it's important that when you move into a new house that you take a look at what was left behind and don't trust anything from the previous owners. For example, the batteries. Can you really trust that they changed all the batteries before they left, or that the batteries have been changed within the past year? Probably not. So at a minimum, you want to go through and change all the batteries in your smoke alarms. Let's talk about the different kinds of smoke alarms out there. This one has prongs on the back, which means it's designed to work with a whole house wired system. When one alarm goes off, all the alarms in the house should go off. Therefore, if you're up in your bedroom and the one in the kitchen's going off, you don't have to worry about, can I hear the alarm in the kitchen? Because the whole house is going to go off. All the wired alarms are going to go off together. But don't trust that the previous owners had all of their wired smoke alarms wired. All right? I went through, took down all the smoke alarms and looked at them, and the one in the kitchen was not wired. The wires were stuck up in the ceiling. I think they didn't know what to do. So you just got to make sure that there's 3 prongs, and it's not that tough to plug them in. So you just want to make sure that all of your wired smoke alarms are actually wired and plugged in. The next thing you want to do is, if the previous owners did a good job, they put the date of the installation or the date that the smoke alarm expires, and they wrote that on the smoke alarm, either on the bottom or on the side. These smoke alarms only last for about 10 years and then they need to be replaced. You can't put them up and expect them to get a lifetime out of them. And if they didn't write a date on them, then you can't trust how old these smoke alarms are. It's time to replace them. Now, this particular smoke alarm on the bottom has a manufacturing date of August 2020. So I can use that to assume I've got at least until August 2030 before this is no longer good. Next, let's talk about the kinds of smoke alarms out there and the kinds that you should consider for your house. There are basically 2 kinds of smoke detectors. The traditional one that detects smoke, and then there's an optical one that also detects smoke. And then this one, in addition, does carbon monoxide testing. So what do you need a carbon monoxide tester for? Well, you probably don't if you're in Florida, but let's talk about why you might. Carbon monoxide comes up when you've got something that's combustible and the gas is odorless and colorless and might seep into the house and then could actually kill you. But what kind of gas are we talking about? Well, we're talking about natural gas, we're talking about propane. If your house is all electric, you're not going to have those things. So spending extra money for a carbon monoxide tester in a house that's purely electric is a waste of money. Now, the other two kinds of smoke detectors, the optical ones, the traditional ones that detect smoke. The optical ones work better, but they're more expensive. So when it comes to putting smoke detectors in your house, I really don't care as long as you get a smoke detector in there. I prefer the optical ones, but if you're watching your dollars and it's a choice between traditional, putting traditional everywhere or optical in a few, go ahead and get just the traditional ones and put them everywhere. Now, the technical terms for the fire alarms are ionizing, which is the traditional fire alarm, and photoelectric, which is the optical fire alarm. The ionizing one works best if there is a lot of flame in your fire, and the photoelectric works better at a small smoldering fire. Now, can you mix the wired smoke alarms with non-wired smoke alarms that you just get at, say, Walmart? Of course you can. The thing is that the non-wired smoke alarms, when they go off, they're not going to make your wired ones go off. So if you've got a non-wired one, say it's out in the garage and it's going off, you might not hear it on the other side of the house, perhaps up in your bedroom. So that's something you need to consider. It can be a challenge to put more wired smoke alarms into an existing house. So you might not have a choice. You might have to mix the wired ones with the unwired ones. And if you have some security cameras like the Wise security cameras, those can detect a smoke alarm signal and notify your phone. So some of that may help you as well. Next, let's talk about where should you put your smoke alarms. And let me just say, I'm not a fireman. I'm just an average guy with common sense. Okay, so, use your common sense when deciding where you should put your fire alarms. Now, here I am I'm in the kitchen, and I'm looking into the dining room. And here in the kitchen, I've got a fire alarm, and that's great. But if a fire were to start in the dining room, take a look at this. I'd have to get probably 2 feet of smoke in this dining room before the smoke would roll over this threshold and get into the kitchen and hit the kitchen alarm. Do I really want to wait until I've got 2 feet of smoke in the dining room before I'm alerted, before I'm woke out of bed? Not really. So I would put another smoke alarm here in the dining room. The same is true here is a doorway, right? So in the room I'm standing in, that might have a smoke detector, but the room behind me might not. And so the smoke would have to fill this whole area before it got below that door, and then it could seep in and start alerting the fire alarm that's in here. So I'd want to put a fire alarm in this room. Not to mention, if that door is closed, the smoke is probably not going to come through that door anytime too quick. So that's an issue. So you want to make sure that you have fire alarms in every room. So let's talk about bathrooms. Do I need a fire alarm in the bathroom? I'll leave that up to you to think about. But here's something to consider. Your bathroom probably has an electrical outlet, and somebody's going to be tempted to plug something into that electrical outlet, and that might cause a fire. So I would do it. I'd put a smoke alarm in your bathroom. You just have to be careful because some smoke alarms don't work well in a high moisture environment like a bathroom. So for something like that, you're going to want to get the optical sensors. You can get smoke alarms for $5 or $10. You can even buy them in bulk. And then the wired ones will run, anywhere from $10 to $15. So these are not very expensive. So why not get a whole bunch of them and put them everywhere? And like I mentioned, the fire extinguishers, they're a little pricey. They can be 30, 40, 50 bucks for a good one. So, okay, I can understand why you wouldn't put one of those maybe in every single room, but do what you can afford as far as fire extinguisher goes. But, those fire alarms, they're cheap. The hardest part with those is just standing on a chair to screw them into the ceiling. Well, one final word. Don't forget the garage. You're going to want to have a smoke detector in your garage and also a fire extinguisher ready to go. Okay, what else do you use to keep your house safe from fires? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching.